Hello and welcome to Game of Box Office. In this video we will analyze the box office run of Star Trek Into Darkness. As always, let's begin with a few statistics. Star Trek Into Darkness was released on May 16th, 2013 in 3,868 cinemas and ran a total of 120 days until September 12th, 2013. The film was produced by Paramount and had a budget of $190 million and received a PG-13 rating. The film opened with $70.1 million in the USA and Canada and made a total of $228.7 million in these countries. In addition, Star Trek Into Darkness made $238.6 million overseas, resulting in a combined total of $467.3 million worldwide. The Star Trek franchise can be compared to the Batman franchise on how they performed over the decades, because they mainly shared the same past. After a bunch of horrible Batman movies, the franchise was at its lowest, just like Star Trek was with the installment Star Trek Nemesis back in 2002. Just like Christopher Nolan did with Batman Begins, J.J. Abrams took the Star Trek franchise back to fame with Star Trek in the year 2009. The film took in $257 million domestically and $127 million overseas, for a combined total of $385 million. The critics, as well as the audiences, praised the new Star Trek film, and everybody was looking forward to another part of the franchise with the same cast and the same director back on board. The expectations went up very high. So what happened? Into Darkness was released and made less money than its predecessor on its opening weekend, and also less money total in the domestic area. The movie was just able to overcome the total of Star Trek from 2009 with the help of the grown international market and thereby higher overseas numbers. So why did that happen? The reactions of critics and the audiences were not as good as with Star Trek in 2009, but the reactions were still very good and most critics enjoyed the film pretty much. Both movies had a very similar theater count and both movies had a PG-13 rating. Cast members were the same and J.J. Abrams was back on the director's chair. Into Darkness had even an advantage over Star Trek, since the movie was released in 3D, which translates into higher ticket prices that Star Trek from '09 did not had. There are three reasons why Into Darkness was not able to overcome its predecessor by a large margin. First, Star Trek was released in 2009, Into Darkness was released in 2013. A time span of 4 years between a film and its sequel is very often too much time and affects the box office performance in a negative way. Here it is also possible to name The Dark Knight Rises as another great example where the time span of 4 years between the predecessor and the next movie was not great for the box office performance. Second, J.J. Abrams was strongly against defining the villain role or even revealing who Benedict Cumberbatch really is in Star Trek Into Darkness. The role of the Joker helped The Dark Knight extremely to generate a big hype. If J.J. Abrams would have revealed that Benedict Cumberbatch played Khan, it would probably have done the same. Third, and probably the biggest factor of all, was the huge competition in May 2013. Just 1 week before Star Trek Into Darkness started its run, Iron Man 3 and The Great Gatsby premiered and pulled in huge numbers. Just 1 week after Into Darkness, Fast and Furious 6, Hangover Part 3 and Epic premiered. Nearly every movie which would have been released between those two huge weekends would have been affected negatively because of it. So what can we say in conclusion? The film did not perform bad in every way, that's for sure. The $470 million total is a great outcome for a Star Trek movie, but since the predecessor took in more in the States and Canada, it pulls the performance kind of downwards. Star Trek was always a very strong franchise in the States, which earned most of its money from the domestic market. If Star Trek Into Darkness would have been released a year or two earlier, with a not so packed May, a total outcome of $550 million worldwide could have been possible. $285 million domestically and $265 million overseas. The multiplier, the opening weekend numbers and the drop rates from weekend to weekend are all okay or good. So in conclusion, the Game of Box Office team rates Star Trek Into Darkness with the grade B. Our upcoming video will be an analysis about The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, Super 8 or a profile about J.J. Abrams. We hope you enjoyed this analysis. Be sure to hit a like and subscribe to our channel. You can also support us on the social networks listed below. See you soon. Bye bye.